Come on. Good morning.
Morning.
Thank you. We appreciate the energy. Can't hear us yet? I think so. Yes. Good morning. We'll call to order. Amy?
Commissioner Ashworth,
Here?
Commissioner Banks,
Here.
Commissioner Hassler, Commissioner Schwerin.
Here.
We believe Commissioner Hassler is on her way in, so she will join us shortly. May we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. We appreciate you joining the meeting today. From the board, we wish you the absolute very healthiest and happiest of holiday seasons, no matter how you choose to celebrate, no matter with whom you choose to celebrate it with. If you wouldn't mind, I think we're going to start with a moment of silence. We have an officer who we'd like to bow our heads for, Scott Gerard. And in addition to Officer Gerard, we'd also like to bow our heads for today being Pearl Harbor Day. So for those of our compatriots years ago who lost their lives. So if you wouldn't mind bowing your head for Officer Gerard and for those that lost their lives in Pearl Harbor. Thank you. Additionally, on behalf of the board, I think we would all want to thank each and every one of you for the tribute that was paid to Detective Valentine last week. You talk about impressive, the way you showed up for him again, the way you showed up for his family in numbers and feelings. It was a pretty special day that we had, commemorating a memorial building, a pavilion, and a bench to him, to acknowledge him and all that he did for us. So thank you all for showing up so well, as you always do. Appreciate that. Maybe changing to a little less significant of an issue, perhaps bring a little levity to this, is Lieutenant Gomez here? He is. So what are we thinking about World Cup? Oh, that's why I assumed you were last week when they were playing, so. For those of you who may not know him, he is Argentinian, so he has a deep favorite team that he's rooting for. They tend to wear blue and white, and we will tip our hat to them if they win, and we'll celebrate with you. No, that's a pessimist talking. Come on. Come on. Nonetheless, again, we, on behalf of the board, we wish each and every one of you a very healthy, happy holiday season, and we'll conclude with that again. Special time of the year. Let's make sure we find time to enjoy it with family, friends, or whomever you choose to enjoy it with. With that, Chief, we will. Oh, sorry. Anything else to discuss this morning? No? Oh, come on. All right, Chief, we'll turn it over to you for your commendations.
Reference to the Russian. Before I got to that meeting, all of us were waiting.
Sergeant, well done.
Sean Fruity. Chairman. My honor
We'll do this then. Okay. It's my honor to present several awards to officers of the first precinct. Fun fact, Jeremy, are you a beekeeper? Okay. Just trying to make you, earn some money here with your honey. Jeremy, have you ever got stung? Okay. That's not a hobby I want. But I do want some honey. So we'll get that set up here right away. All right. Both these officers are assigned to the overnight watch in North County. And I'll just go from here to read just so I don't miss anything that they did this wonderful night. Wednesday, April 27th at 5:51 a.m., while you were on patrol near Halls Ferry Road and Capel Drive, you heard a loud banging noise. You were quick to investigate and discovered these noises were coming from the Family Dollar store at 9882 Halls Ferry Road. The officer saw a male suspect shattering the glass to the front door of the business, attempting to gain entry. You approached and entered the store parking lot just after the suspect was able to unlock the front door and make entry into the business. Once inside, the suspect moved quickly towards the cash registers. Recognizing this was a burglary in progress, you entered the business without hesitation. You searched for the suspect before engaging him in a foot chase. You chased the suspect from inside the store through the stock room and out the fire escape door. That's pretty cool. The chase led you outside where you were able to quickly apprehend the suspect as he hid behind the store dumpster. Later, you obtained an arrest warrant for the suspect for the charge of burglary in second degree. Suspect was held in St. Louis County Jail with a $25,000 cash-only bond. Your actions prevented the Family Dollar from suffering a substantial monetary loss and are a credit to you in the North County Precinct. Your actions are in keeping with the highest standards of the St. Louis County Police Department. I appreciate the work that you guys do. Jeremy, I know you're coming to day watch, see the light of day whenever we do the change of the shifts, but I don't get a chance to tell you guys thank you enough, but for what you do overnight and protecting the citizens of North County, I really appreciate it. So congratulations. Hang on, Doug.
Hey, guys.
One time.
Oh.
Sorry.
Got anything here?
Yeah, my mom.
Yep.
All right, it's my honor to present these fine gentlemen. So these three officers are assigned to the precinct intel in North County. Without them and the work that they do and the follow-up that they do, I'm honestly not sure how the officers will be able to do what they do. The other officers red and beats. They handle any violent crime that occurs that's not handled by Crimes Against Persons. Somebody shoots up a house. These are the three that are going after the suspects. Not only that, they just everything that you can imagine that needs to be addressed that they can handle, that they can take from the beat officers, they do, and they do it extremely well. And one of those situations turned into something bigger than your average investigation. And that's what that's what they're going to be commended for today. Between October 2020 and October 2021, these three gentlemen worked alongside special agents in an organized crime drug enforcement task force titled Operation Royal Duke. This is going to be in the Castle Point neighborhood. I don't see anything. You assisted special agents with daily 16-hour covert surveillances, undercover buys, and enforcement operations spanning St. Louis County, St. Louis City, and St. Charles County. You conducted physical surveillance, assisted with the placement of stationary surveillance cameras, monitored stationary surveillance cameras, and placed and monitored GPS tracking devices on motor vehicles. You conducted physical surveillance during the undercover buy operations involving the use of confidential informants and undercover special agents. You coordinated enforcement stops utilizing uniformed officers of patrol, canine, and a special response unit, which resulted in the arrest and identification of subjects and seizure of drugs and firearms. In October of 2021, you assisted special agents conducting an arrest operation involving 3 of the targets. You assisted special agents and safely executed 10 federal search warrants, 3 arrest warrants, interviewed targets, seized 7 firearms, ammunition, seized over 1 kilo of cocaine, seized over 1 kilo of crack cocaine, seized 5 vehicles to include a semi-truck and trailer, indicted 2 residential properties, and seized over $50,000 in U.S. currency. February of 2022, you assisted special agents in the United States Marshal Service conduct an arrest operation involving the 13 remaining targets. You assisted ATF and United States Marshal Service arrest and interview 11 of the 13 targets while seizing several firearms, fentanyl, and U.S. currency. The last 2 targets were safely arrested on a later date. Your actions reflect highly not only upon yourself, but on the image and reputation of the St. Louis County Police Department. So, for those that don't know, Castle Point is a neighborhood in North County that needs a lot of attention in more ways than one. And once it was discovered that there was an illegal drug operation up there, these 3 outstanding officers, with the cooperation of the ATF, just ran with it. Made a difference, made an impact in the neighborhood, and I could not be happier to have you guys in the precinct. So congratulations. Third time's a charm for this one. We tried to get you here at 3 different meetings, and I screwed up the first time, didn't notify him directly. I think Captain Pete Morrow and I will take the assist on screwing up the second time. This time you're here. Pete, did you pick him up and drive him here? Because that's probably what we needed. Last meeting, I had the honor to present some citizen awards to 2 individuals in North County that assisted Officer Phillips on a water rescue. I've said it before, you watch these, you review these body-worn camera footage, you know what happens, but it still isn't easy to watch, and it's still a very intense viewing, especially this one, where, I don't know how that, when you first went in the water and you got up to at least your waist high, and he's walking through the water, and you have no idea what's out there. I would say there's sharks and there could be snakes though. Snakes could have been a thing. But parking lots that are completely covered with water and you don't know what you're walking into. Again, I knew what happened at the end and he was going to be okay, but it's still a tense thing. So, July 26, 2022, while St. Louis County was under a flash flood warning, you observed vehicles partially submerged inside rapidly moving and rising floodwater that had completely consumed Lucas Hunt Road near Jacoby Avenue. Recognizing the need to act immediately, you waded through water and made your way to a motorist who was unable to open the door or windows of her vehicle. Despite significant effort, you were unable to break the vehicle's passenger window. Did you get a new window breaking device? Because that didn't work on that one. Last time I said it was a NASA window or a space shuttle window because that was fun to watch. Probably not fun for you at the time. You were approached by a bystander, Mr. Stephen Reeves, who had waded through the water to assist you. Mr. Reeves was able to shatter the window, allowing you to gain access to the motorist. You were joined by another bystander, Mr. DeJuan Bateman, who helped you safely remove the motorist from her vehicle as the floodwater was beginning to cover the dashboard. That's a true story because as you're watching this unfold, I would say at least an inch per minute that water was rising. I'm not exaggerating. You can watch it. From when he first broke the window and they're trying to get this woman out. So it was rising quickly. You and Mr. Bateman escorted the motorist to safety and she was physically unharmed. You, however, suffered physical injuries to your hand, wrist, and legs. That was the shark bites in the legs. While wading through the floodwater, you placed your life at risk due to a number of circumstances. A lightning storm was actively occurring. The floodwater was swift, making it difficult to navigate and maintain your balance. The water was extremely murky, making it impossible for you to be aware of any safety hazards you may have encountered, which included exposed sewer holes and the potential for downed power lines. This was an evening rescue. This was not daylight. So it was dark. You acted heroically in the face of personal injury and risk of life. Your actions demonstrate your commitment to the department's values of human life, problem solving, and excellence, and reflect positively on the image of the St. Louis County Police Department. Nathan, thank you so much. That was an act of heroism, and you deserve this award.
So yesterday at the National Community Water Rescue during that storm, we actually had a request from the North County Precinct to start a boat patrol. So you get some boat patrol. Anyway, Commissioner, that's all I have, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think from the board, we would say thank you to each and every one of you. Your commitment to our community, the commitment to what you do, your protection of all of us certainly helps all of us sleep better at night. And I would entrust my family with each and every one of you. So thank you very, very much. Anyone else? It's great. With that, if that is the only reason you're here, not that that isn't a substantial enough reason, you are free to go. Spouses, family members, you're welcome to stick around for this extraordinarily exciting meeting we're going to have. You can hear all the details and the facts, but if not, we will wish you a happy holiday season. And for those of you who are staying, one last note there. Sergeant Rodriguez sent out a note yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, regarding some candy canes and some things that some of the community, local community and distant community does. If you would please make sure you respond to the sergeant's notes on getting your people their candy canes and other things, that would be great, particularly this holiday season. We just told them to make sure they read your email and responded to it.
Any questions, please?
Thank you. Deputy Chief?
You've cleared the room, sir.
Yeah, I have that effect from time to time. Good morning, everyone. Commissioners, so I'm up here this morning to give you what I hope will be the final update for the planning process for the strategic plan. I know last month's board meeting, the chief gave you an update. I wasn't here. I was on vacation. So I kind of want to go through really quickly what we've done in the last month, kind of where we are and where that takes us, and then hopefully give you a little bit of an update on kind of some things that are in the plan. I know you've had a chance to review the public-facing document and maybe answer some questions ahead of some that you might have, but give you the opportunity to kind of ask questions prior to us finalizing and posting this at the end of the month, because we are on schedule to do that. So first and foremost, over the last month, we've continued to get input from the organization, from some of the different working committees and from the board itself. And we've kind of worked through those items to make sure that they were both included in the plan, and if not, to go ahead and include them. So we're finalizing that right now. That's been taking place over the last several weeks. When we're finished, and we're largely finished with that part of it, we will forward that document to the chief for his review. He can then include anything in there that he feels is appropriate. And the board will get a chance to see it one more time before finalizing it. So we intend to finalize the public-facing document and post it by the end of the month on the website. And I kind of want to hit on something here, and you've heard me say it before. This strategic plan, while it encompasses 5 years of goals for the department, it's designed to change whenever we want to change it. So there's a mechanism within the process itself that allows us to review everything in it, change it as we feel is appropriate. And I say that to say, at the end of the year, when this document goes live, we're not bound all 5 years by what's in it. So if you see something that you think needs to be addressed, we address it in real time and we adjust accordingly. It's designed to be a living document. Back to the timeline. So Marissa Williams in Research and Analysis has everything current as of today. So anything coming out of conversations that we may have, we will add. As I said, the chief will look at it one last time. I will look at it one last time, and then we'll be ready to go. So that kind of wraps up the planning process, and then we move into the working phase. So kind of what happens moving forward after the first of the year when this document goes live. And I know there's been some questions from the board as to what that looks like. And I've kind of described it before, but let me take just a quick second to say kind of how this works. I know 2 meetings ago, I sent the board a copy of a sample document that looked like a worksheet. Basically, it had some key activities in it, and it had spaces for division commanders to write their work and return it to Research and Analysis. That's the model that we're going to use, at least initially, to start the work on this. So in January, Marissa Williams will take everything in this document. You see the check marks next to the different divisions that are affected. She will create those worksheets and she will push them out to the division commanders, who then become responsible for creating the groups that will work on those key activities. What you haven't seen are the specific items that they're going to work on. That's what's in this document. I will forward this to the board later on in the week when it's finished. These are your action items. So you've heard me talk about them, but you've never seen them. There are roughly 40 pages of things for people to actually work on. So you see the goals, you see the key activities, you see the initiatives in the public-facing document. This document shows you where the work is done to accomplish those things. And that's what they'll be working on. Every quarter, and I know in one of the key activities, it talks about biannual reviews, which is different than our typical annual review, but that's a public-facing type thing. Every quarter, they're going to be responsible for reporting back to Research and Analysis so that the chief and I and the board can review that progress to determine if we're meeting the goals that we want. So, and realistically, leadership will be involved in this on a weekly basis, trying to track the progress of it. But quarterly, we want to be able to report to the board. So that's the intention right now. So that process will be managed by the division commanders, to me, to the chief. The reporting piece of it will be managed by Research and Analysis so that we can provide actual feedback to the board, if that makes sense. Okay.
Do you mind if I jump in?
No, please. Please jump in at any point as I go through this.
So with respect to the task, do you envision binary yes, no, complete answers, or is this
No.
going to be a continuum?
Yes, the latter.
Okay.
Yes, some will be yes, no, but the majority of them will be the latter.
So have we, this might be a premature question, have we gotten to the point where we're measuring, like, if we're anticipating a 40% change in whatever, are we tracking how quickly we expect change to be achieved?
Yes, similar to the way that we did the Teneo reporting.
Okay.
So I'm going to make sure I answer your question. So you will get updates quarterly. And if you look at the very last page of the public facing document, it kind of describes what that's going to look like. And there's a chart and there's percentages and there's things of that nature. And I'm not sure if that's what you're asking or if you're really asking me what does 40% actually mean versus what I'm showing you. So who determines what 40% is? Who determines whether or not we're meeting those objectives or not? And we've had long discussions about who's going to manage and stay on top of this plan. And I think the first 6 months will probably help us answer that. The way that I described it is the way we intend to start it. That doesn't mean 6 months from now, it's not doing what we need to, and we need to pivot. And somebody actually needs to own this thing. And it's a monster. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it. It's going to require a lot of work. So that's the intention. I hope that answers your question. I think initially that's me to try to determine, whether or not we're achieving within each one of these 5 goals where we're trying to be. And I think we'll know more after the first quarter, but really after the first 6 months, whether it's working effectively and you're getting what you need, I'm getting what I need, and the department itself is getting what it needs. And then ultimately the chief.
So we're evaluating our progress, and we're also going to be evaluating how we're evaluating our progress.
Yeah, and we may change too, because we may decide, okay, it's either not achievable, it's not doing what we want, and we may pivot and go a different direction. And you may see one report that shows we're 40% of the way towards the goal, and the next month I come back to you and say, we've chucked the whole goal. It's not doing what we want. We're at 0% now because we've changed. And so that's probably the best way to describe the process. And hopefully it works that way, but you're talking about 5 different goals with 100 or so different key activities within it. So we'll have to learn together. It's a new process. So
Managers want to be their job. Research and analysis will keep they're responsible. Maybe what we need to do research and analysis. They will give us information that's proven or need to work.
Chief, I appreciate that. I'll build on a concept. I'm going to challenge a little bit. So don't hear this as a direct challenge. It's a conceptual mental challenge, which is you or anyone that's assigned to can't own this. That needs to be owned by every person in our department in concept, but there certainly should be 20, 50, 80 people who own the delivery of this. And
well,
I mean,
the whole department should own it. And
that was first.
to steal one of your phrases, I'm just the conductor, for right now. When I say own it, I mean own, you know what I mean.
I do, but
Yeah.
when making sure that others understand, it isn't Deputy Chief's plan or whoever it's assigned to. It's all of
Absolutely
our
not,
plan to
and
make
that's-
happen.
Right. And I think the process to this point has demonstrated that. The work as we begin in January will even further demonstrate that, because more and more people become involved in actually contributing to the success of these action items, which push everything else in the plan.
Including the 4 of us. So please make sure that we understand what our role is to
Yes, sir.
ensure its success also.
So a couple other quick points, kind of want to address some things that I've heard as we've moved through this process. One question that the chief I know has been asked, I know I've been asked by members of the board some is this plan aggressive enough? Does it push the needle far enough? And I'll tell you, I honestly don't know. I don't know. I believe it does. And again, I think the next 6 months will probably tell us that. But we were a little bit hesitant to push too far too fast. And that's why we built the opportunity within the plan to change it as we go. So if we get 4 months in, 6 months in, a year in, and we're not moving fast enough, then we challenge ourselves to move faster. If we're moving too fast, we slow it down. This thing is a complete 360-degree change from anything we've ever done. It's a culture shift. It's a change. And I don't want to lose it because we try to go too far too fast. So we'll stay on top of it. As I said, it's adaptable. So the chief will pivot if necessary, and you just have to kind of trust us on that we're comfortable with the aggressiveness of the plan, so to speak. The last thing I want to say is there's some things that are not in the plan. One of them is culture. You don't see any specific language about culture change anywhere in the public-facing document. You don't see a goal to change culture. You don't see an initiative to change culture. And we talked a lot about that, and it doesn't just apply to culture. It applies to other concepts that are important in policing today, like diversity and inclusion and transparency and things like that. And how do we include that in a strategic plan? And in discussions with the chief and executive staff, we made the decision to make it permeate throughout the whole document rather than just naming it. That was intentional. We did that intentionally. So if you are looking for culture-driven initiatives, just go to Goal 4 and read any of them and tell me that you don't see culture change in each one of those key activities. So you have to look for it, but it's there. Same with diversity initiatives. Now, there's some specific diversity language in here, but we didn't want to put targets in the plan. Increase whatever by 25%, because then you pat yourself on the back when you hit 25% and you think you've succeeded. Whereas if your philosophy changes and you drive that progress, then it lasts forever. So I've challenged the division commanders in their action items and in their work to do that, to take that into consideration. If you truly read the document and what's in it, you see opportunities for that. And I hope that that works out. But if it doesn't, we'll continue to monitor again and we'll pivot and change. So it's a little bit different idea. I hope it works out. If I can answer any other questions that you might have, I will.
One or two more. Thank you for your candor and your honesty. I believe through our earlier meetings with you, we're pretty comfortable with both the definition that you have now and the ambiguity that it may change, including measures and other things. We appreciate you and the group that's worked on it, that you've addressed some of our concerns around things like measures and dealing with that ambiguity. And I think our final question, at least mine, would be, are you comfortable that we have the capacity to execute on it too?
Ask me in 3 months.
We will ask you in 3 months, sir. Right now, though, you feel like we have the capacity to execute on it.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thank you for your leadership.
I'll echo that. I also very much appreciate the thoughtfulness in responding to, is this aggressive enough? And is this, it almost seems like you've thought through, okay, here's our reach, here's our comfort level. We're going to find some place in between that that is a progressive goal. We're going to move the needle, but we're not going to do so in a way that we either set ourselves up for failure or we're not doing so in the best interest of the department. And I think that's really thoughtful. I wonder, and we haven't had this conversation, I wonder if it would behoove the entire department if the board sort of pushes more aggressive and you push back in a, we love these ideas, or we appreciate these ideas, or we hate these ideas. And, you know,
Let me just give you a little context for kind of what we were thinking when we put this together. I'm not trying to be defensive, and I don't disagree with what you're asking us to do. But to the commissioner's point about capacity, you know, that's the other side of it. I don't know. I said yes. I'm hopeful that the answer is yes, that we have the capacity to do with what's in here right now. But I don't know that for sure. I'd like to be more comfortable in my yes before I get more aggressive. That's the first part. Second part is a year from now, when somebody's standing up here giving you an update, whoever that may be, I want them to say, no, we weren't aggressive enough, or I'm not comfortable with the way it reads right now, and here's why, and here's what we're going to do in addition to that. Because I know we can do more. I feel we can do more. We got to do this first. So it's like laying a foundation for culture change and then building upon that. And that's ultimately, I think, what this 5-year plan, because it is a 5-year plan, allows us to do. So in year 1, year 2, when we're talking about what's in here, I fully anticipate that there's going to be all kinds of way more aggressive initiatives within this plan. That's what I anticipate happening. I just don't feel 100% comfortable moving that far right now for the reasons that I've said. So, yeah, and push. Go ahead. I mean, we love the ideas. You know, I just want to be realistic about what we have the capacity to do and not do right now as we move forward. And I don't want to get the cart in front of the horse, so to speak.
Should be part of our dialogue, right? And part of
100%.
perhaps the role
And
we
I
play is
welcome the
pushing back
conversation.
further than you're comfortable.
And I wanted to share the concept so that as we're continuing this dialogue throughout the next year plus 4, it's not perceived as adversarial, but more of a
No, couldn't agree.
working.
And I don't think we've ever felt that, so.
One last question. So I'm a citizen reading this document here on January 2nd, 3rd, whatever day I get a chance to read with it. What is it that we would like them to think about 5 years from now? What's going to be different?
Well, we will communicate that to them as part of the plan as we go forward. So that's that messaging, that interacting with and engaging the community in a more direct manner. So that's a good question. I think it's kind of open-ended right now. I think, we can descend them.
So when I read it, I read things like my police department is going to be more communicative with me, more accessible to be more engaged with me, and vice versa. I'm now more engaged with.
Right.
I understand that in reading through it. I'm pretending I'm a citizen now, right? And unfortunately, that's hard to do because of our knowledge, right? We've got a lot more knowledge than others have, but I'm going to have a department that can perhaps move a little more quickly because it has that technology it needs to operate, but also catch criminals or protect me and my family.
Right.
Yeah, it's got. So those are the things that, as I read it, I kind of stand back and say, if I were wearing just my citizen hat, what am I interpreting out of this document?
Well, I think proof is in the pudding, so to speak. You'll start to see changes. So you'll see different opportunities to communicate with the police department. Some things we're already piloting out of the other group that came and presented with the pilot being run out of Jennings for submitting citizen input. You'll see differences in the website. I mean, you will see tangible results to go along with the words. So I think we can demonstrate the differences, budget conversations aside, that we are doing what we say we're going to do, and you'll be able to see it. That's the goal. So, and if that doesn't happen, then again, find ways to make it happen.
Anything else? Thank you, sir, for your leadership to get us here.
Yes, sir.
And all of you for participating in this.
Yes, thank you.
The deputy chief said this is obviously something we've never done before. We've done this from top down in the past. Everything came down from the chief to the majors or whoever that we had to develop this plan. We're doing something entirely different. And the one important thing that he mentioned, I'm sure you guys heard it a number of times too, that all of this stuff, we hope to be measurable. We can gain something from what we've done over a certain period of time, make adjustments if necessary. I think they've done a great job with this. Okay, so Joyce has the COVID. Terry has, I don't know what Terry has. She just decided to skip the meeting today. So they gave me the opportunity to discuss the budget.
Excellent. So we have many, many questions in detail.
In detail.
In detail. So anyway, the first topic is the 22 year-end forecast for our 22 budget. I spoke with Joyce. It looks like we're on track to deal with our budget right now. It never fails that at the end of the year, we have money to turn back in. I know at one point you heard $1.6 million in surplus. Okay, actually it's going to be more than that. It's going to be about $4 million that we're going to return in. And a lot of that money comes from benefits that the board has put in there. We didn't ask for these benefit numbers. They always overboard us with benefit money, benefits for retirement and medical. They put that in there. That is nothing that we asked for. And if we don't use it, it goes back to them. The 1.6 million is pretty much surplus from salaries that we didn't use. And it covers, actually helped cover overtime. I had that phone call that I just had was from Paul Kreitler, because I wanted to get some information from him as to the general process as to how the county deals with their budget. I think they look for every department at the end of the year to return some money to St. Louis County. And that's pretty much how where they get some of the money to budget for the next year. So I wanted to make sure that, it was okay for us, which I don't think it is, for us to take some of our surplus to say buy extra cars, to buy extra everything at this time of the year, as opposed to turning money back in. I wanted to get some information. We had a hard time contacting last week, else I would probably have some information about that, but I called them this morning, and I just wanted to get an answer to the process of every department turning money back in. So that's where we are with the surplus that we have.
So can you clarify that? They're expecting us to return $1.6 million?
Well, and it may not be that because, this budget stays open till February of next year. So we still may be using some of that money between now and February of next year. That's when the numbers will be finalized as to what we're going to turn in. It may be less than the 1.6. Hopefully that it's not going to be more than that.
So I asked this board to take some time before we respond to that to determine whether we think that's in the best interest of this police department to do. So we may have other intentions, but we'll talk about that as a group.
I understand that perfectly, but as Carl helped me out here, I think they look for that from every department, is to look for some kind of surplus to be returned to the county.
We heard you.
Right.
Again, we're not sure that that's in our best interest.
I understand.
As a police board, so we'll
Right.
talk about that.
Okay.
I do have a question about that, however. Has there been an instance where a department in the county has not returned monies?
I'll be honest with you and say I can't answer that.
Okay.
We can find out if
Okay.
that be the case. Who can answer that?
Yeah, as part of the preparation. County Budget Director Paul Kreidler gave us a report of that. And almost without exception, every county department at the end of the year returns some
Right.
funds. So they don't zero out their accounts. We tend to be on the lower end of that. The county generally budgets for close to a 10% return on the budget. So if you had a $4 million budget, they'd look for you to return 400,000 of that budget on a yearly basis. We typically run around 1%, 1.2%. But to answer your question, ma'am, yes.
Everybody.
They do count on that, and everything that I looked at, I did not see any department that did not return funds for all the historical data that they gave us.
So I guess I'm thinking about this, is it more of a tradition or a requirement?
Not sure, but I know for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Whether they actually look for that, but I know that they use that surplus to work into their budget for the next year.
Okay, thank you both.
Stays open until- And the budget stays open until February. Is that to capture charges in December?
I believe so.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
There's one more question, though. You mentioned, Chief, you mentioned using some of that for new vehicles and other equipment.
And that's what I think that the county veers away from doing that. It's taking that surplus money that we got, that we'll have, and using it for buying other materials, paying for services or whatever. I think they will prefer that we didn't do that. And that's what I wanted to get from Paul Kreidler this morning, because I don't think that's the case. Okay. 2023, they have not finalized the budgets for the county budget for 2023. Obviously, you're all aware of the cuts that they're giving just about every department. Ours total about $7 million. On Friday of last week, we were asked to submit a impact letter to Paul Kreidler, or actually to the council, impact letter as to how that $7 million would affect the police department. So we submitted the letter. I think I submitted the letter forward to the board as to our impact, as to how that's going to affect us. With that, they asked Chris Graham Howard to schedule a meeting with every department to discuss that impact letter. So we had that meeting with Chris on this Tuesday. I think we had it on Monday with Chris to discuss our impact letter, and can't really tell you what we got out of it. Okay. I think the one thing that we were looking for at the end of that meeting, which we still do not have the answer yet, is to whether the council want us to cut positions or whether they're going to just leave us with the numbers that we got and put a freeze on those numbers. So we still have those positions to fill later if we can, or whether they want us to actually cut positions from our department. So that has not been answered yet. Everything that we stated in our impact letter is right there. We reiterated that to Chris on Monday, and it'll be the same thing that we'll reiterate to the board, to the council, if they come to us about how it will affect us. I know the deputy chief has the commanders getting numbers to him about what we can do without if we have to get to that point from each of one of their divisions. They're working on that, and that should be to him next week as to what we can do without if we get to that point. So
Chief, what was your response to the cutting positions versus freezing positions?
about
Cutting positions
Right.
versus freezing.
if they cut the
positions.
positions, if they just tell us to do without it, then we don't have those positions to fill anymore. If they leave us with the positions there, I can make adjustments within our department to maybe take someone that we don't have a position for, and transfer them into a position that we need. But we got to have those bodies there. Otherwise, if we cut the positions, then we got to go out and hire people if we can do that. Now, they've told us that if we get above the 30 people that they say that we can hire based on the 75% cut, then all we need to do is go back to them for appropriation to get money to hire people. If we need to go back to them for more money for overtime, they say just come back to them and they'll consider it and give it to us.
So my gut, and I've been thinking about this for a total of 45 seconds now, so forgive me if it's not well thought through, is that there's a significant difference between cutting positions and freezing positions. And cutting positions is a short-term solution that has very long-term impact.
Exactly.
And my gut is that we need to advocate very strongly against cutting positions. I think if we need to in the next year freeze positions, so be it.
Right.
But if they are cutting positions, we need to be fighting that tooth and nail.
We're going to fight it with everything that we have as far as cutting those positions. Now, I don't know if that's their goal for every department. I would believe that it would be if one department has to cut, then everybody's going to have to cut. That's my feelings. That's kind of the feelings that we got from Chris the other day as to the direction that he thinks they're going to go. It's not been determined yet, but yes, we'll do everything we can to keep those positions to where we can move them if necessary.
So I think we're on the same page. My understanding is that the number of positions we have authorized is a thoughtful number based on the number of citizens we have in St. Louis County and our general, I'll just say, activity level that we need to deal with. Is that correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So to build on that, I wonder if it would be helpful for the board to also advocate to the council against cutting positions. I'll just throw that idea out. I mean, is there something that we, the board, can do to jump in with our support?
Well, obviously, you're more than welcome to help us out with this any way that you can. We would appreciate it. How much the council has their mind made up about this 75% cut, is something that they're going to have to consider, because if we have to make those cuts, then obviously we're getting away from some of the things that they want the police department to do. Community engagement, PAL, things like that. If I have to pull people from those positions to patrol the streets, they're going to do without them. But that's what they want us to do. But these budget cuts will affect us in doing those things.
Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. I had the same thought. Jotted some notes down for us to discuss and closed.
Just one more thing, a couple more things. They came up with a Bill 358. That is the ordinance for captains and lieutenant colonels' pay that was introduced last night. Lieutenants, captains, and lieutenant colonels' pay that was introduced last night to the council. I spoke with Deanna Vinker yesterday about ARPA funds. And what's happening with ARPA funds right now is that the ARPA funds have been moved to our general fund with St. Louis County. Our 23.8 million has been moved to the general fund. And that's in Bill 74. In Bill 75, it directs how we can spend that 23.8. I asked her, had the state done the same thing with theirs yet? And she's not sure whether the state has done that. Don't know if the state has to even do that. But there has not been any kind of official paper for executive page to sign yet on the ARPA funds. But pretty much we've done our part of it. It's being reviewed by legal. The document for the ARPA fund is being viewed by Stephanie Hill now. But we've done our part. Our money is there in the general fund for us to spend. And they dictated what we can spend it on. It's basically the RIC and Fusion Center, property control, second precinct, and some training facility. And they didn't specifically say the range, it just said training facility. So that's what Bill 75 says that we can spend that money on, but it is in our general fund now.
And we will do some updates to the range no matter what the bill says.
Exactly.
Yes. Right. So can I clarify for myself? Maybe it was clear to others. The county money is sitting in the general fund. The state money is not yet.
Correct. And we don't know whether the state has to go through the same process that we go through. We don't even know that they have to do that yet, but it's not there yet. Nothing has come, language has come in reference to the contract or whatever to us. It's being reviewed. Nothing has come to county executive page for him to sign off on and say that we're ready to move with that money.
And sorry, one more question then. By putting it in the general fund, it is reserved, earmarked
For the police department.
only for the police department. It
Yes,
cannot
sir.
be used by any other departments.
Exactly. Okay. Good job. Lieutenant Shellman? See if you can outdo me.
I hope not, because those last two discussions were a lot deeper than. All right. So as we go through the, excuse me, crime statistics here, hopefully they'll pop up on our monitors at some point. Sergeant Graff's going to take a look at that for us.
There we go.
I'm sorry?
Like magic.
Oh, there they are. Like magic. That's right. All right. Obviously, all of the statistics that will be shown are January 1 through November 30th of 22. Our notable events tab, which really should read Bureau of Professional Standards update. Year to date, last 3 years. When I look at the 2022 to 2021 comparison for just November, so November of 22, November of 21, it almost falls in line as if the numbers were right with each other. For instance, citizen complaints, we had 1 in 22, 0 in 2021. Moving down the line, comparatively, 22 to 21. Internal investigations was 12 to 9. Use of force incidents, 21 to 20. Vehicle accidents, 14 to 13. And vehicle pursuits, 5 to 2. So no major changes year to date on any of those. And as you can see, the bottom portion of this, the failure to yields, is at 252, which was one of the higher months. However, last month, the 271 was still rings as the highest single month.
If you look at even the 2-year trend line, with the exception of use of forces, the 2-year trend line is pretty consistent too.
It really is. And again, the use of forces, as we've explained, that 2020 is kind of that outlier year, just a lot less citizen contacts during that time. The heat map on the failure to yields. Again, looking at overall statistics, 52% of the overall failure to yields result from either the 1st precinct or the 8th precinct. And that falls in line with what happened in November, which was 54 total percent of the failure to yields in the 1st or 8th. Our patrol data. This is not uncommon. I look back to 21 on this. But we saw a drastic drop from the previous month in radio calls, 2,000 less. We saw a drop in self-initiated. In fact, every single category that's in front of you on these monitors had a drop. The least drop was in felony arrests. So it would take a real deep dive to explain the difference of why 2,000 less radio assignments or nearly 1,700 less self-initiated. But looking at arrest when they're almost the same, when we're making only 16, so last month we were at 266 felony arrests, and this month 250. And obviously that's with 2,000 less radio calls. It would take a deep dive to understand and break down each and every one of those calls. Maybe it's just more manpower type calls. Once I move to one of our slides later, which is the calls for service, you'll notice that domestic incidents have crept into the top 10 for the first time in forever. So, those are multiple car calls that may take a lot more time, which would explain maybe the drop in self-initiated. But again, that would be a lot deeper dive than the shallow one that I'm doing. When we move through these next few slides, the crimes against persons, property, and society, I kind of noted on my sheet the percentage changes from what we saw last month, and almost everything falls in line. There's always a little bit of an outlier. Like, for instance, the homicides last month we were 21% down, and now we're 19% down. So not much of a change. And again, I'll have the homicide infographs up here in a second. Assaults with a firearm moved from 3.1 to 3.7. So it's extremely minimal, a percentage point maybe here or there. The only one that moved actually about 6 percentage points was the assault with hands, feet, or fists. Went from 24.7 down to 18.4 because we saw only 7 in the month of November. The homicides for the month in November, we had 4. Unfortunately, we outpaced last year. We had 0. The clearance rate in November, obviously 75%, 3 out of the 4. And then if you look at the chart, shows the 2 green, the 1 yellow, the reasons for the homicides. And I know you had asked last month about the other category, which is listed below that, which this is really small for me. Mental health episode, 1, and a child abuse incident on the other.
Thank you for adding that information. Before you move, comparing these to this slide and the slide previous, the 51 homicides versus, I think it was 63 last year. Do we have a feel for what 20 would have been, or maybe a more realistic number, what 19 would have been from a homicide perspective?
I don't. I'll try to defer quickly to Lieutenant Longworth. If he doesn't have it, we will get it for you.
Is he awake? Correct. Thank you for those of you who may be listening. The question that you heard, and the answer was, in 2019, our homicides were higher than they are currently. So our trend line, maybe summarizing, our trend line is actually flat to down over the last 3 or 4 years.
Would appear that
notwithstanding
way,
the COVID year.
That's accurate, sir.
Thank you.
All right, again, so as I stated, so for property, those percentage changes are minimal at best, with the exception of the motor vehicle thefts, which we have finally in a somewhat of a positive trend. Last month, we were right at 70% and now down to closer to 60%. However, we're still 60% above where we were the year previous, so not tooting anybody's horn, but hopefully starting to regress a little bit.
So before you go, a 10% drop through 11 months is a pretty substantial drop. We know why it fell?
I don't. However, I would say that once we look at especially the next slide, which will be, oh, I went back, the Kias and Hyundais. So we saw that at the beginning of the year, everything was pretty steady. This spike, which drove it straight through the roof, really started in July, August, September. So we went up so significantly that I don't think that there was any other option other than to come down. Does that make sense? Come down pretty quickly.
That's the piece I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that logical that it would come down quickly, or does it flatten as opposed to coming down? And so that,
Yeah.
and the reason I'm going is we and other municipalities have been handing out the locking bars. Are those making it? Do we have a feel for what's driving it? Are people locking their cars more? Are they putting them in garages, right? Do we have any feel for why? That's still a pretty substantial decrease.
It is. And I'd be speculating and guessing on whether the locks have helped. To be real honest with you, December, January, February, they usually, where do we see? They go back up because of,
Warming the car.
exactly. So the jury's still out.
Why we
We'll take a look. Yeah, next month, absolutely.
November was cooler than October, which was cooler, right? So the warming of cars will start to happen more and more, yet the number came down. So
That's right.
it's counterintuitive to me personally.
But there,
yep.
there also was the initiative, right? The joint initiative with respect to auto thefts.
That, we're looking for everything that we can to get these numbers now. And if you look at, saw it on the news this morning, one initiative by a number of the St. Louis County Police Departments have helped. I know Colonel Cox has got his special enforcement people out there working with him, and they have generated some numbers. Are they the numbers that's going to drive these down a lot? Maybe not a whole lot, but they're seeing more cops out there patrolling against these specific things. And like I said, we're looking for everything that we can to get those numbers down. But yes, that has helped us.
It'd be interesting to compare the days that they're specifically out with, and I don't know if we even keep the numbers by day.
So that'd be something I'd have to get with, obviously, those specialized assignments that would do that. I do know that last week, a week ago today, at command staff, I believe that Lieutenant Gomez had updated everybody that they made a couple of significant arrests on some of these vehicle theft folks. So again, maybe, I don't know how that contributes, not 10%, but maybe a little bit.
Yeah, and my question wasn't intended to be singular. There's no one why, right?
Sure.
We know that. So if it's a multiple of 3 or 4 things, just a feel for it, or is it just lucky? And that's okay too. Just trying to understand the substantiality of the drop.
Yes, sir. And then same thing for society. Percentages are almost static across the board, with the exception of our DWIs, which is a good thing for us. Whereas department-wide, we wrote or made 15 DWI arrests in 2021 November. We made 38 in November of 2022. So the great work of the majority of that, I was obviously Highway Safety Unit, but also the folks in the Division of Patrol.
We compliment that number's up.
It is, right. Calls for service. So nearly every precinct saw their lowest call volume in the last 5 months, again, which looking back at 2021, that's not nothing that it always works that way. July through October are obviously going to be higher than normally November.
Collect your numbers in.
Just got in, yeah, this just in. 59 homicides in 2019 as of the same date. So
Thank you.
there you are.
Thanks, sir.
And whereas West County is right on their number, moving average wise, every other precinct, I'm sorry, is below the moving average again, which would be expected in November, looking at previous years. We had already talked about that in the patrol data earlier. Self-initiated, same thing, everyone below their moving average. And November was the lowest in the last 5 months. This is the slide that I was referring to earlier. So, if, we still keep this up here, and I'm glad that we did. I had asked you if we wanted to keep this on there, but reason being, the first time you can see domestic disturbance has crept into the top 10 of directed calls. That's the first time that it's shown up on that chart all year, at least from our presentation. Don't know what it means, but understanding that, though my point is those types of calls take up more manpower and time. So when we look at the drop in self-initiated, some of that could be explained in a small part by that.
Not to be funny, but domestic disturbance increasing that way is disturbing.
Yes, absolutely. That said, it's not necessarily increasing. So last month we had 440. It just didn't make the top 10. Does that make sense?
Good point. Nice perspective.
Yes. So this month we had 316. So it's actually down, but it's taking up more of our call volume. And then finally, our TSR data. The percent across all precincts, same thing as I explained earlier with the crimes against persons, property, and society. The percentages are almost the same. City of Fenton had the biggest percentage swing, which was about 5.5%. They moved down from about 8, and but still falls in line with the percent minority in the precinct. So nothing that jumps out there. And as I explained last month, the TSR committee meets every quarter, so we will be meeting following December's numbers. That's all I have.
Have a question? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Happy holidays. So one of my jobs as really any employee, but as HR director, is to support my boss. And I want to remind the employees in the police department that when they see Deputy Chief Ludwig in the hallway, now that he's a conductor, he would like to be referred to as Maestro. Yes, Maestro. So starting with the traditional staffing report, in regard to the budget, I just want to reinforce what the chief said about the discussion between the characterization of whether it's a freeze or a cut. And Commissioner Schwerin, we agree wholeheartedly with you about, that the labeling matters, the concept matters, and it has long-term effects. And I think we must have repeated it, Chief, about 7 times to Mr. Gron Howard in our meeting the other day, so he could communicate that to the council, and any type of reinforcement of that would obviously be welcome. The way it was first presented to us was it was just a freeze or an abeyance, not a cut, not defunding, not a reduction. So I think the jury's still out on how that's going to be characterized. So with the staffing report, we have 80 vacancies now. That's an improvement of 2 from last month. So again, there's that steady inch by inch progress. Obviously in January and February, we do expect some retirements. So we'll see how that number works out then. And yesterday we gave conditional offers to 4 recruits and an experienced officer and a security officer. So it was a good day for the 6 on the final review board and for the department. Next week we have 2 experienced officers, 3 recruits, and a security officer interviewing. So here next week we'll have 6 county officers and 10 municipal officers graduating at merits from the academy in class 206, and then class 207. Our target was 15. That was our best estimate as to what we could do. Depending on how it goes next week, we might have 21 county officers in the academy. So very pleased with all that effort from starting with employees that encourage people to apply, to our recruiters, to our background investigators who keep the integrity of the police department up, and then all the way through to Sergeant Hawk, Lieutenant Webb, and of course the final review board that carefully scrutinizes all our candidates.
Not that you need our permission, but you have our permission to exceed recruiting efforts anytime you would like.
I'm going to write that
All
down.
the time
Thank
you
you,
would
thank
like.
you. So the professional staff is the vacancies are the same as.
Excuse me, Director, hold on just a moment.
Yes, sir.
Is that our largest academy class in recent history?
No, we had, I think, 25 last year. And at one point, we could probably handle, Captain Kelly might disagree with me, but we could probably handle around 50 total in the class. But that's a combination of open enrollment, municipalities, and St. Louis County. At one point last year, I think we had about 52, 53. It made Captain Kelly nervous, but that number was eventually reduced, so it was doable.
Again, before we pass, congratulations then on exceeding expectations. We don't say this just because it was 21 or whatever it might be versus 15. 15 is a pretty substantial number to Commissioner Schweren's question. So compliments to the recruiting team for doing that.
Appreciate that, and I know they do too. They do very good work. So pro staff, 38 vacancies, same as last month. That's 377 authorized, 339 actual. We have a dispatcher academy class 16 graduating next week. That's 3 dispatchers, and then academy class 17 starts January 30th. And we're working to fill that. They generally have a capacity of about 12.
Remind us again of the vacancies of the professional staff, the vacancies in the communications area.
Sure, the 10 right now, although actually I think that number's 9 because we just had somebody come back to us, an experienced dispatcher. I'll address that a little bit more in a couple minutes. And then we have 8 security officer vacancies, and that number's down, improved, because we just gave a conditional offer yesterday. So that person should be able to start rather soon. Next week, of course, we have another security officer. And COVID is frankly, fortunately, insignificant now that Joyce is out. It's up to 3 out, but she is available by phone and working from home, so she doesn't feel that bad. She's just doing her due diligence and staying away. Military separation, we're down to just 5 right now out on military separation. I bring it up every month just to remind the public of how we support our veterans to come to the department after their service to the country, and also that we support reservists. And so we have 5 people out right now doing their tours for their reserve duty. And then just to give an experienced officer update with respect to experienced officers that we've hired since the effective date of the CBA lateral pay amendment on September 9th. So we've hired 8 city. We've had 2 St. Louis County reinstatements, so officers coming back to us. We haven't had any municipal officers, but we do have some coming up on final review boards. There was one conditional offer that was given that the person voluntarily withdrew because they chose to remain in the corporate world because more money and they could work from home. Obviously, as a police officer, you can't work from home. So it's a challenge to fill these positions, but we are hiring good people. With respect to the Mr. Chairman, I think you asked about last month about kind of an update on dispatcher and security officer recruiting. So just to touch on that, all the given things like the experienced employee referral, the CBA has lateral pay built in. I think we all know that, but just some things to touch base on with security officers. The chief has removed the height weight standard for security. Recognizing that our competition is the private security world. They don't have height weight standards. They don't have, and the PT testing will be removed also because we just can't compete because generally we pay about the same, sometimes less as the rest of the security world. So we want to create those standards that will allow an applicant to succeed if they really want to be a security officer with the department. And so the recruiters specifically have been targeting literally Target stores and so forth, retail establishments where they're talking with people, people coming and going, talking with security officers there that maybe they would be interested in coming to they're already security, maybe they would be interested in being a security officer with the county. So very aggressive one-on-one recruiting in that regard. With the dispatchers, of course, we have the lateral pay and the CBA. And the recruiters have been going to high school job fairs because you only have to be 18 to be a dispatcher. And the Communications Bureau, they helped us, and dispatchers were present when the recruiters are addressing these job fairs. So that was very helpful too. And then I've mentioned this before several months ago, but just as a reminder, the recruiters actually. Officer Haas and Detective Party, a background investigator, first time ever attended Camp Fury. It's a Girl Scouts of America program with girls that are interested in being first responders, not just police, but dispatch, EMT, firefighters, that sort of thing. So that was a very positive, that's kind of a building block for the future. It's not necessarily an immediate opportunity unless you get those 18-year-olds that are ready to graduate out, if you will, from the Girl Scouts and go into the working world. And with respect to both dispatchers and security, we have aggressive marketing through social media, specifically highlighting the opportunities of security and communications. We go to the job fairs, like I mentioned, and also to the tech schools there. North County and South County Tech, they have a high amount of students that are interested in starting to work when they get out of high school and perhaps not go to college or go to a tech school part-time. And then we have the traditional flyers at gyms, coffee shops, libraries, churches, and career centers. And then we've also had the recruiters and a team of other officers at the Suits for Soldiers event. It's a nonprofit organization that it literally provides suits for veterans and then gives them assistance on, hey, how to put a resume together, how to interview, that sort of thing. So we're there actually hands-on helping these veterans put on their suits and kind of try to guide them toward the police department if they're interested. And Mr. Chairman, you also asked for an update on the parental leave. So we will have a special order out very soon that sets forth the guidelines, and it's what the Civil Service Commission has adopted with the 12 weeks for the primary caregiver, 4 weeks for the secondary caregiver. If your significant other is employed with the county, both employees can't have 12 weeks. So we'll have that out shortly. And I believe you also asked with respect to the laterals, the 117 or so that have received the benefit of the lateral pay on the commission side, what their status is in regard to retiring or resigning. So we've only had one resign, no one retire. I know it's only been 3 months, so it's kind of a short measure. I wouldn't expect of those 117 to retire anytime soon because they're going to want to up their pension and have those last 3 years help increase their pension. And then, Mr. Chairman, you also asked about what it looks like with the 12s in regard to retention, satisfaction, that sort of thing. And I would just note that certainly that's part of our strategic plan also. And we had the pilot programs that you're aware of in the North County and West County precincts. We've done surveys. In general, the initial thought process is that the officers aren't too happy about the 12s. They tend to progress into being more satisfied with the 12s. We're going to have surveys, quarterly surveys for all the precincts. We'll gear it a little differently for North County and West County because they've already been involved in that. And we'll be working with Deputy Chief and Colonel Cox on creating those surveys and identifying where the problems may lie. I would note that there's going to be a layover shift in North County precinct, so that will help in that transition at 6 a.m. or 6 p.m. where somebody doesn't have to be held over on a call, that the layover officer can handle that call so they can get off their shift after their 12 hours.
So am I correct in interpreting that generally the feedback is we have an initial shock to the system, and then once we get into it, is it not disliked, or is it people start to like it?
Colonel Cox, can you help me out?
Colonel Cox, can you come on down? We've got a couple of questions related to 12 hours since we're talking about the human resources.
Yeah, some of the specifics I'm not really sure of. He knew he might be called up here too. so. You got your PowerPoint?
The survey showed initially, especially in both precincts, that it was more favorable. But in the first precinct, we recognized that they just didn't have enough officers. They were being worn down, still, you don't want to have to do overtime when you're working a 12-hour shift. And some of the officers were getting off late. So I think it was pretty consistent out west because things pretty much stayed the same. We think we got the number right there, but we missed on the number up north and we kind of wore some people out. So that's why we want to send more officers up to the North County precinct and establish an overlay.
And your response to that, so drilling down a bit into details, let's pull up for a moment. We are in a position where the 12-hour shifts will go live at the end of the year. We're comfortable, captains are comfortable, precinct captains are comfortable that what we have is what we need for now in order to implement this. Granted, there's no right answer, right? It's not enough. That's not my question, but my question is based on what we have, we're comfortable moving forward with 12-hour shifts. Our plan's in place.
Well, I'd like to be more comfortable, but we are prepared. We are ready to get the North County precinct up to over 90%, which it hasn't been in a long time as far as staffing. And also to get the other 7 precincts, well, 3 contracts they're full, but the other precincts up to at least 80%. And that has been a struggle. But the 12-hour shifts will ensure that we have better staffing. It takes less people to work 12-hour shifts. So I am comfortable. I feel better about going to 12 hours. I think it's absolutely necessary. And to answer Commissioner Schwerin's question, just while at the FBI Academy and just talking to some of our municipalities, St. Charles County that works 12, the officers really prefer a 12-hour shift model because they get more days off. I think it's somewhere around 185 days off, the days that they won't have to work. So if you look at it nationally, people are moving towards 12 hours for a need, and also especially the younger officers, they prefer the 12-hour shift because they prefer the days off.
Make sure we're clarifying to play into the conversation on the budget. We, several of our precincts are running at 80% of staffing levels. 100% would be what we need to run. They're running at 80%.
Yes, sir. And with the 10-hour shifts, got a couple that's working at a lower level than that. So the 12, and we've already worked the numbers out where we can at least get people up to 80%. I feel a lot more comfortable when we're at 80. When the precincts start to slide below 80, I do tend to get a little nervous.
As I'm sure our citizens do too, hence the desire not to have any cuts since we're already
Absolutely.
20% less than what our staffing levels should be.
Correct. Anything else?
Are you confident that quarterly surveys are going to give you the timely feedback needed to make adjustments, if any are needed?
Yes, ma'am. And I'm to be honest with you, I'm confident because of the 2 pilot programs we've run for a year. And some of us, we've been living this for like 14 months because we had to put a lot of work into it before we went live last year, I think December 26th with the 2 precincts, North and West. And now with the surveys that Lieutenant Shellman puts out, constant conversation with Captain Tanner, Captain Cunningham, we've been able to fix a lot. There will be some challenges because now we have 3 contract precincts that, it's a contract. So they have the the personnel that we've agreed to with the cities. So it'd be interesting to see, and I'm more interested in those surveys at our 3 contract precincts in the upcoming year. But I think if we do it quarterly, if we need to kick one out after 1 month, we'll do it. We're not rigid in patrol. We can adjust and see if we need to do more, we'll do more. But we just don't want to keep putting information out there because people tend to not participate. But we want them to have an opportunity to live this for a little while, then maybe kick one out 2-3 months into the new year.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
So I would just add also on the surveys, to your point, Commissioner Schwerin, that, and I know you and I have had this conversation, sometimes we can over-survey. So I think that quarterly time period is well thought out by Colonel Cox.
Oh, and don't get me wrong, too many surveys stinks. I get it. I'm not advocating for it. I just want to make sure we get our information
Sure.
enough.
Give them enough time to settle in and get their feet wet. So just an update that we are working on, I believe I mentioned this last meeting, that we are working on a concept with for a daycare center with a nonprofit. It's at the infant stage. It's a law enforcement supported type nonprofit that goes around the country and sets up daycare centers it's geared more toward law enforcement that has way longer hours, and it's somewhat subsidized by gifts and donations and so forth. That's very much at the infant stage, but we'll keep you updated on that. And then lastly, I just kind of want to end on a solemn but inspirational note that the chairman mentioned everyone coming together for Antonio Valentine at the shelter last week, and of course a year ago, at this time. And I've been hearing from some employees that in deciding whether to stay here or whether to move and advance in their career, that what was very inspirational for them was how the department came together when Antonio died, and on a smaller scale because it was a little more low-keyed with the passing of Officer Gerard on Thanksgiving. So my own personal observations is just everybody coming together for those events. I got a call Thanksgiving morning from Deputy Chief Ludwig. I didn't expect it was a call to wish me happy Thanksgiving. I knew something was up. So a lot of personnel, including the chief who went to the Officer Gerard's home and was on the scene then with the O'Fallon police. Everybody rallied, everybody did their jobs. Lieutenant Roach got the support teams together, and the chaplains were involved. Everybody did their job that day and have continued to do that job, both for Officer Gerard and his family and Officer Valentine and his family. And employees reiterate this to me, that they were inspired by this. They know how it indicates to them that this is a family. We're not perfect, but I don't think any family is. And it was very inspirational. Certainly made me proud to be a part of this organization. And so to my department family, the board, all the employees, happy holidays.
Thank you, sir. Chief, anything else?
Without me getting up, what Carl said on the day, Thanksgiving, all about.
Yeah.
Colonel Cox called me and said, I wish I was calling you to wish you happy Thanksgiving. And I knew it wasn't that, just as Carl said, and he told me about that. And naturally, my mind started running about what I needed to do, what we needed to do. And every time I thought about what we needed to do, when I looked into it, these guys and our staff were already doing it. So just played my part as went out there supporting the family, supporting our officers. So as Carl said, we worked well on that day. we don't want to be experienced at that,
No.
but we did it well.
Our collective thank you to all of you. We know many of you went out on Thanksgiving and went to precincts, went to your precinct, went to other precincts to talk to our officers. So we're all grateful for that. Thank you. All right, moving on the agenda then. Approval for minutes from our November 19th, 2022 meeting.
I move we approve those minutes.
I second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the minutes? Any corrections, anything else? All in favor of approval of the November 16, 2022 meeting minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Approved. Moving on to letters and communication. Any incoming communications?
No, sir.
Nothing. The only thing we have under the outgoing communications, at least at this point, is any update on the Missouri Attorney General's decision that letter that we talked about several months ago.
None, except I'll note that we have a new Missouri Attorney General. So I would move that we resubmit the letter with a request to the new Missouri Attorney General for a response.
Do we have a second of that motion?
I second it.
Any further discussion on that rationale being may have been lost in transition? Let's just make sure we put it in front of the new Attorney General looking for the guidance.
Yes.
Agreed. Any further conversation? All in favor of resubmitting it to the Attorney General, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you. We will resubmit. Any other outgoing communications?
Oh,
Oh.
actually, I don't know if it's appropriate, but we talked about potentially this board sending a letter with respect to freezes versus reducing numbers. And that just came up at this meeting. So I wonder if it's appropriate for us to discuss and vote on sending a letter to the county council with the board's position, which I think would be advocating for freezes instead of cuts. So I guess in line with that, I move that we send a letter.
I second.
So let's talk about that a little bit more, just to make sure people understand what we're talking about. The board would send a letter directly to the county executive and to the county council indicating that our expectation is that at most it would be a freeze, that cuts would be unacceptable. And I use the word at most because I'd like to think about whether even freezing a police department that's already running at 80% capacity in its precincts is the right solution either. That's why you heard me hesitate a little bit in there. I'm not sure that's the right solution for the community either. So it's a bit of thinking that through as a collective group on what does that letter consist of? Is it just the freeze, or is it to say, no, we're not even comfortable that you've, not the cuts, but we're not comfortable with the freeze either.
As usual, you're much more eloquent in your words. I agree. I think we should reject the premise that a freeze is necessary, but at most, temporary freeze.
And I would suggest that the letter also reject the budget cut.
Meaning that the budget,
That we
explain a little
do
bit more,
not
Thompson.
support cutting the budget because of the reasons we've discussed previously, understaffing, more resources, those kinds of things.
Okay, so that comes back to the freeze thing too, because that's
comes-
really where they've hit this with the budget. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, understood.
I agree
Okay.
with the letter.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second motion, knowing that we've clarified what that letter will be. Any further conversation on the letter? All in favor of sending the letter as we've defined in the motion to regarding both the cuts and the freeze, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will be sending a letter. Be wonderful. Thank you, Chief. Chief made the offer to use some of his resources to draft the letter, so thank you.
Mhm.
Anything else in outgoing communications? Anything else in letters and communication? Any old business. I was going to say new old business, but that oxymoron doesn't work, does it? Come on, smile a little bit. Thank you. All right. New business. We have 8 contracts. 7 are for the County Municipal Police Academy. 1 is a grant. I'm going to suggest that we just split them in half so that we're not voting on all 8. We'll do the first 4, and then we will come back with the second 4 if everybody's fine with that. The first contract is a professional service agreement with The Right Solution Incorporated. It is a new contract to provide the CMPA with an instructor to teach a program entitled Interpersonal Perspectives and Stress Management, parentheses 4 hours, for up to 4 sessions between January 25th and October 25th, 2023, at a cost not to exceed $2,000. The second contract is a professional service agreement with The Right Solution, Inc., a new contract with Right Solutions, Inc., also for the CMPA, for an instructor to teach a program entitled Interpersonal Perspectives and Stress Management, parentheses 8 hours, on October 17th, 2023, at a cost not to exceed $1,000. The third is a professional service agreement with Fluorescent Psychological Services. It is a renewed contract with Fluorescent Psychological Services to provide the CMPA with pre-employment psychological screening services and employee evaluations to determine fitness for duty or training. All other terms, services, and conditions remain the same. The term of the agreement is January 1, 2023 through December 31st, 2023. And the fourth agreement for voting in this first phase is with Jeff Burke. It is a new contract with Jeff Burke for the CMPA for an instructor to teach up to 52 classes in 2023 entitled Private Security Original Training at a cost not to exceed $480 per class. We have a motion to approve those 4 contracts.
I move that we approve the contracts presented to the board.
Second. Any further conversation on those 4 contracts? All in favor of approving those 4 contracts, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 4 contracts approved. The second bundle, first in the second bundle, is a professional service agreement with Law Enforcement Total Solutions. It is a new contract for the CMPA for an instructor to teach up to 110 classes in 2023 entitled Private Security Original Training at a cost not to exceed $480. The second in this bundle is a professional services agreement with Vista Law Enforcement Training and Consulting. It is a new contract with Vista for the CMPA for an instructor to teach up to 36 classes in 2023 entitled Baton, Pepper Spray, and Taser Training at a cost not to exceed $450 per class. The third in this bundle is a professional service agreement, MW Professional Enterprises LLC. It is a new contract for MW Professional Enterprises LLC with the CMPA for an instructor to teach up to 52 classes in 2023 entitled Private Security Original Training at a cost not to exceed $480 per class. And the last contract is a professional service agreement with Jefferson County Sheriff's Department. It is a contract with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department for fiscal year 2023 state cybercrime grant, which is administered by the Missouri Department of Public Safety. The grant funds the cybercrime task force, which employs 1 detective from Jefferson County. The contract is for $63,706, which will cover the salary of the detective for the grant period, which runs from June 1, 2022 through May 31, 2023. May I have a motion to approve the second 4 contracts?
I so move.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any further conversation on the second bundle of 4 contracts? All in favor of approving those 4 contracts, the second bundle, the last 4 contracts of the 8, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have 8 contracts approved. Anything from a public perspective? Amy?
Nope.
Nothing. All right. The Board of Police Commissioners may vote to go into closed meeting for legal advice and review of claims and lawsuits involving the Police Department, Section 610.0211 RSMO and Section 114.020.11 SLCRO, and discussion of employee and personnel matters, Section 610.0213 and 13 RSMO, and Sections 114.020.1, 3, and 13 SLCRO. May we have a roll call motion to move to close meeting?
Commissioner Ashworth?
Oh, sorry.
Gonna make a motion.
Yep, thank you.
I move we go into closed meeting.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further conversation? Amy, would you take a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Ashworth?
Yes.
Commissioner Banks?
Yes.
Commissioner Hassler?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwerin?
Yes.
We are in closed session. Thank you all. Happy, have a very happy season if we don't see you again. We are reconvening. We had a vote in closed session to return to open session. It was a roll call. There was a motion and a roll call vote. And that roll call vote was affirmative for all 4 of the commissioners to return to open session. Commissioner Hassler has since had to depart, and so we do have her proxy for some of the additional votes. Our first vote is to vote on amending our board rules. There were several changes that were recommended, and those board rules will be, I believe those are posted, but nonetheless, they will be out there for the public to see. May we have a motion to approve the amended board rules?
I would move that we approve the amended board rules.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great, thank you. One of the amendments in that board rule, the set of board rules, was to move the election of officers to the December meeting. And in complying with the revised board rules, we have a proposed election of officers for the 2023 year. That proposal would be for Commissioner Hassler to be our liaison to the academy.
I think
Oh.
by the rules we need to nominate.
Oh, is that how it works?
So
All
I
right.
will nominate you, Commissioner Ashworth, to be our chair for 2023.
And I will second that motion.
Do we vote on those individually then?
We have in the past.
We have in the
The
past.
rules don't require.
All
one year.
right, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. May we have a motion for vice chair?
I would move that Michelle Schwerin be our vice chair.
I will second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Is that an abstention?
Oh, aye.
One abstention.
One abstention, not allowed. All right. Our third is for Commissioner Banks to be our secretary.
I'll second that nomination and motion.
I will also. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, sir. Hopefully that was in jest and not real.
Just in case.
Well, I have Thomasina's proxies.
Oh, so-
We just outvoted that. Very good. Now we got it. And our last is for Commissioner Hassler to be our liaison with the academy. I will so motion.
Second that.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. Thank you for the correction on how we do that. Third, we have some appellate rules that have been revised, appellate being the appeal process that we are working on to hear claims. May we have a,
Motion to accept our advised appellate rules.
thank you.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Last vote is for employee compensation. This is a vote for professional staff and for those not covered under a collective bargaining agreement for the 2023 year. We have Thomasina's proxy for that too. All right.
I move that we accept the pay schedule for 23 and 24.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye.
And
Nay, sorry.
I have Thomasina's proxy as aye.
So that vote would be 3-1. With that, I think that is all that we had to do today. Is that correct?
I move that we adjourn.
May we have a
Second.
Amy, would you take a roll call vote on adjournment?
Commissioner Ashworth?
Yes.
Commissioner Banks?
Yes.
Commissioner Schwerin?
Yes.
And you have Thomasina's yes.
Thomas says yes.
I know.
Three's enough.
Yeah, we three.
Happy holidays, everyone. Our next meeting will be on January 18th. We wish you a very happy holiday season and a fantastic start to your new year.
We're back to 9 a.m. too.
9 a.m. on the 18th. Thank you.